USL's first division, USL Premier, is confirmed. There's 38 days to kick off for AC Boise, and there's some fun matchups to look at in the 111th edition of the US Open Cup. That and much, much more on Wednesday's edition of Morning Kick Around. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kick Around, the show in which we dot the map of the ever-expanding American soccer landscape. How you feeling? Plenty to talk about. My name is Robert Kerr, local soccer guy. To my side, radio soccer guy Jason Davis. How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm ready to go. Big day. Obviously, we've got a little bit of movement on USL and their big plans. We can talk about whether it is actually substantive or what, and then we obviously have US Open Cup, which I adore, and we get to do more countdown to kickoff. I mean, this is what Morning Kick Around was made for, Rob.
It really is just under a year since the promotion, relegation, and the D1 plans were initially announced. On Monday, we were saying, where is the details? And a day later, a bit more, and the most substantive, or at least the most we've heard from USL on the matter, came out yesterday in amongst of a slew of news. Big news Tuesday in American soccer. And before we get into that, programming note, our marathon session that we talked about in previous episodes, we are kind of updating the scheduling of that. The scope and the entertainment factors involved will take a little bit more planning. Yeah, Jason and I, we got a little excited for the Monday after Super Bowl. Seemed like a good moment, a big moment in sports had passed. So let's jump on the next moment. But to make the Kickathon 2026 what it could be, we're going to push it back a couple weeks, maybe mid to late February, I should say, is more likely what we're going to do for Kickathon 2026.
Yeah, we want to get some really good guests on. We want to plan some things. We want to encourage people, to spread the word. We're going to ask your help to do that, all of the ultras especially. So, yeah, stay tuned for those details. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, there's going to be some great guests, some games, and I need to work on my Bob Barker impression to really channel my inner game show host.
No.
I got to get the skinny mic, and I really got to get it on. No?
I'm just kidding. If you really want to try, Rob, then I'm okay with that. I guess we can do that. I am excited to develop some games. I also want to throw in here, before we get moving too fast, that there is a new fantasy soccer app out there in the world called Fantasy United. And a friend of mine, a guy that you'll know from the Total Soccer Show and other places, Graham Riven, is involved in Fantasy United and has asked for Morning Kick Around to be involved in that. So they've launched a Morning Kick Around MLS Fantasy League through Fantasy United. So go find Fantasy United and you'll find the Morning Kick Around League and you can join and be part of that. I mean, I know in the Discord there's a bubbling conversation about fantasy and how good it is. I think Graham and his guys over there are trying to figure out how to make a fun fantasy soccer game. So check that out.
Are you a fantasy sports guy?
I am a let's do fantasy soccer. I forgot about my team 3 weeks in and I didn't adjust and now it's over. And I'm probably, like, as we speak, drifting down the Premier League fantasy table because I do have a team, but I have not looked at it in months, Rob. Months. But I want to, right? I want to.
So that's another thing we have in common, Jason, is the enthusiasm followed by forgetfulness when it comes to fantasy sports. Before we get going, big show today, lots of big news and a great guest to get to today. Before we get going, please consider supporting the show. Tell a friend, subscribe for free. You could support the show by becoming a channel member. Just $3 a month gets you the knowledge of supporting this show. You get bonus content, priority access to content, and priority comment on screen during these live shows. This is an interactive, this is a conversation-based show. Jason, me, and the chat. And if you are a member, you get a front seat to that chair.
Yes, absolutely. And also, I threw up a goal, super chats. Obviously, the ultras are here. If we can get the goal, right? Maybe we do a little bit of a bonus show after the fact. There's some things we know. I don't know that we're gonna tell all of our tales yet, Rob, but there's some things we know. I think that we could have a very frank conversation about some things in American soccer, which would be very interesting if we can get to a goal. It's just an idea today, but let's move on. We've got stuff to cover.
Oh, Jason, that's mysterious. Jason bringing himself to the forefront there. But yeah, support. You can tell a friend, subscribe, become a member. You can also support some fundraising goals we have at Morning Kick Round's Ko-Fi page. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. We are a podcast as well. Follow us on social media at MKickAround across all the social media platforms, or write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. Business inquiries, just saying hello, or a different topic that we haven't addressed. Feel free to reach out. You ready for the show?
Let's go. Let's do it.
Because it is a hot show, we're going to go right along and start the show with today's hot topic here on Morning Kick Around. After nearly a year of waiting, we now know the name, the launch date, and the size of USL's First Division League. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome officially USL Premier.
Which we predicted, right? I mean, we weren't the only ones. We can't claim that we were like the only people to believe it was going to be USL Premier, but there it is. They fall directly in line with the Jake Edwards original idea of naming their leagues after the English leagues. Jake no longer with USL, but he was the guy in charge when they decided to go with Championship and League One. And I think we probably should have known at that point, Rob, like we should have known there was going to be a plan to put a league on top of the Championship, because why would you willingly make yourself sound like a second division league when maybe you're not in direct competition with MLS, and that's obviously a thing that people talk about, but you're certainly not in partnership with MLS. USL and MLS are two different things. So why wouldn't you give yourself a chance to call your top level Premier or whatever? So will they call it Premier? Will it be like, oh, I'm really excited about the Premier season this year? Is that what we're going to say?
I wonder if people are actually going to adopt Premiership as like in England.
No, we're not that pretentious, are we? That's
I don't know. It is a little bit of a I don't know if paradox is the right word, but like this effort by USL is trying to push the American soccer landscape forward by using the English naming isms, which are a little odd anyway, which will also need further explanation to the new American audience, which they are trying to.
Right, which is when we look, I know this is not the news. The news is Premier, and we're going to get to some details that USL has dropped, or, they feel like details. Are they actually meaningful in any particular way? I'm not sure. But the fact that the third division of USL's structure is called League One is absolutely going to be confusing to some people. Absolutely, it's going to be confusing.
Because League One, Championship, and Premier could all mean top.
They could all mean top. And League One sounds like the top, but then you're right. That's exact. And again, I don't love the idea that we're just copying England's structure for the naming of this, but this is what they're going with. And this is a development after the original declaration of intent back in March of 2025 that they were going to launch a First Division League. Now, here are some details, and I think what's not included in this graphic that USL put up on their website is the number of teams. And Rob, I know you have that information in front of you, so I will ask you to pass that along in a second. But it says the future USL men's professional structure, a connected 3-tier pathway designed to support competition, promotion and relegation, and growth across more communities. So USL Premier, which is the new league, national table, launching in 2028, top tier of men's pathway, right? So we are still 2 years away from the launch of the First Division. We'll come to the number of teams and plans in a second. USL Championship Division 2, national table, balanced schedule, more than 15 years of highly competitive pro soccer. That that's just like a what, a brag. They're like, oh, we've had a league that's lasted 15 years. Just throw that
They
in there.
needed another bullet point for the slide. I've been there.
USL League One regional format. That's intriguing. Local rivalries, national footprint. Now, those don't have to be in tension with one another. You need to explain it to me, though. So, Rob, give me some details on each one of these competitions.
So, per the USL's announcement, there will operate, the USL Premier will operate as a single national table with a long-term target of 20 clubs and is scheduled to launch in 2028.
Okay, what do we think long-term target means? How long is long-term, Rob? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? How long is long in this case?
I would say 5 to 10 years is probably the timeline
Okay.
here. Because I mean, we're
Okay.
already talking about 2 years to start. And as we tried to put together a list on Monday of 12 teams, and that got a little scant and thin. And so if we're trying to get to 20, there's a lot of teams that need to be born or need to build a stadium or expand their current stadium. There's a whole lot of in-betweens for a lot of different clubs and cities to be prepared to meet this a USL Premier or First Division standards. I mean, like after those first 4 or 5 that we, teams and locations, it gets a little thin. So getting 12 in 2 years seems like a challenge. Getting up to 20, that's a whole kettle of fish.
It sounds thin if you are following directly along with the professional league standards as they currently exist. And I will continue to throw out this caveat. All right. And I talked about this on the radio yesterday when we covered this story, me and Eric Winalda, who's very much for all of what USL is doing. And I am too, with with a bit of an asterisk in that I want to see the proof in the pudding. I'm not just going to assume all this is going to go the way that they plan it. When you say thin, that means, okay, well, 75% of the teams in the league have to be in metropolitan areas of 1 million people or more, right? That's not incredibly difficult to get to. It's just something you have to consider. 15,000 seat stadium capacities are mandated by the professional league standards. That is a tougher lift when you look around the country and you look at the various teams that USL currently has in place. Now, this is just off the top of my dome this morning with Rob's help, with Jenny's help, trying to figure out what this might look like. In fact, you know what? I realized that this is not my complete list. Anyway, there is like green where we think a team will meet all the standards and have a stadium big enough. We have yellow where it's, maybe, probably. Are they going to be a team that really wants to be in first division soccer in the USL? And then the blues are kind of like, I don't know, like maybe they could get there. What, they got to have a stadium plan in a place like Vegas or a place like Phoenix. A place like San Antonio doesn't have enough seats in their building. So again, this is like, can they do it? Yes. Is it easy? I don't think so. And just because it says long term, and we know the PLS requires 12 teams in year 1 and 14 teams by year 3, if the PLS stays where it's at, then there won't be any relegation from the first division for a while if they're aiming to get to 20 teams, Rob. It'll just be promotion from USL Championship. And then again, building out USL League One so you can promote from there, but you just get this bulk of teams. I mean, I imagine that based on that regional element and the local rivalries and trying to minimize costs for League One teams, and we've seen it in the Pacific Northwest, right? They've already got Boise popping up. They've got Spokane. They want to put a team in Eugene. They want to put a team in Medford possibly, or they're kicking the tires on that with the Medford City Council. Like, you can see that they're trying to pod this at USL League One. So we're talking, what, 30, 40 teams maybe? Ultimately, long-term in their dreams for USL League One?
Yeah, I think it would be something like that. That is intriguing that the part of this release of information, or at least plans, is that regionalization of League One, because whenever we've had any sort of a conversation about League One and what we think of the future, it's basically like regionalization is needed. So obviously the folks in the league office are obviously working towards that same thing, and kind of looks like they're trying to create footprints a la USL League Two. Obviously, there's a huge amount of USL League Two teams, but there's divisions in certain pockets all across the country. Some divisions have to have travel farther, but they do try to coagulate them or collect them in certain pockets. But yeah, so the plan is 20 in the top tier, 20 in the championship, and then seemingly an unlimited amount of teams in the regionalized League One.
Unlimited. Yeah, and I think that there is something to be said for the barrier to entry at the League One level being relatively low, although we've already caught wind of some problems down there, right? But the barrier to entry to enter League One, which is professional soccer, being relatively low so that you can have teams in places that you wouldn't otherwise expect there to be a professional sports operation, right? We've seen this again, Medford, Oregon. I'm going to keep coming back to that because it's been in the news recently and we covered that story. Did you know there was a place called Medford, Oregon before we covered that story, Rob?
I did not know there was a place called Medford, Oregon.
And that's
I
not
even had a Freudian slip about Medford, New Jersey during that story.
We're not talking like it's not to say that Medford doesn't matter. It's just that for us, you know, whether we're East Coast guys, Midwest guys, or just big population center guys, or Medford just doesn't bubble up into our attention, right? Like that's not a town that we would need to know about, but it could potentially support a League One team rather in the USL. Now, there are lots of things with the PLS, and I'm seeing people talk about the PLS. And yes, we will acknowledge the idea, the notion, the argument that the PLS were written to protect Major League Soccer. Let's just toss that out there. It's there. People want to say it. Fine. It's on the record. If you have PLS in place right now, will U.S. Soccer amend them? Right? We talked about that as a possibility throughout this year that we've been following this story. Is USL in direct conversation with U.S. Soccer about amending the professional league standards? If you don't amend the professional league standards, what kind of waivers are you going to get from U.S. Soccer for USL Premier, potentially for the USL Championship, and even for League One in the sense that, you know, there may be some things about the size of not the size of the markets, but maybe time zone, like various things that are in there. I think time zones is mainly a first division issue, but, you know, what will you get waivers for? Stadium size certainly is a question because I'm seeing a lot of people say, you know, most teams can't draw 15,000. Why do they need a 15,000 seat stadium? Why are you choking off the potential interest in a professional soccer team by saying, well, you can't have one in that division unless you have 15,000 seats in your stadium? And again, I said this, I think, on another show. What you don't want is teams leaving a small soccer stadium that better fits their needs for a bigger non-soccer stadium just to meet a 15,000 seat standard. That would be not a good thing in my mind. So the other part of this, which obviously is the most complicated part of this, is when teams go up and down and it changes the configuration of clubs and you lose a team that meets the standard to the second division, and a team that comes up from the second division doesn't meet the standard, is there an automatic waiver? Is there something U.S. Soccer is going to put into place? They should. Let's be honest. They should do that if they're not going to get in the way of promotion and relegation. And again, the reason this can happen is because USL is in control nominally because it's a league and these clubs operate underneath them with their agreement with USL. This is all an enclosed system, right? This is all a bubble that USL is in control of. If US Soccer says, no, you can't do pro rel, well, we'll be straight into court, won't we? I don't know that I don't think that's a possibility. I think US Soccer is not going to get in the way of this, but if they're not going to get in the way, then they have to open up the possibility that these leagues might not meet the PLS every season.
Yeah, definitely hope that there's some very lengthy and deep-reaching conversations and outreach going between USL and USSF regarding those waivers and the PLS requirements. Like, just you're talking about they were set up. The PLS requirements were set up about 10 years ago. Speculation that, you know, those were set up to protect MLS at the time. And it's funny that we're now talking about them now, and this whole new USL is a completely different entity, or at least their goals seem to be a lot different than 10 years ago. And will those framework of those PLS be applied 10 years later to a landscape that doesn't align at all when they were originally created? I sure hope so. I think this whole master plan, this grandiose plan, kudos for, we'll get to the things that overlooked in a moment, but kudos to USL for these big, bold plans in order to do a whole new endeavor. I mean, adding 3 tiers, adding a whole new league, adding a whole new system that's foreign to the country. That's a big, big endeavor. And hopefully the rules, the pro league standards can be amended because having to work in that restrictive framework for a fluid system, it's like kind of an oil and water. So I don't think that one can even really exist. Like if there isn't any waivers or amendments coming to those pro league standards, this might be a short run or a much more complicated adventure than we'd all like. Do we want to talk about some of our like some of the pieces of information yet to be disseminated, or do we want to kind of speculate on these first year teams? I did see a comment from Soccer Night in Detroit saying that Sports Business Journal saying they're going to bring up 8 teams from the championship and look outside the ecosystem for others. Interesting.
Well, outside the meaning clubs that or potential clubs, expansion teams, I guess is maybe what that's about. I mean, well, because again, like it just makes sense. And I know people already are, there are some people already who are true believers in Pro Rel who are saying you can't just name the teams for the first division. They've got to earn it. Now, how you make that happen, you play a tournament. Do you do a point total for the last 3 years?
Blood sport, Jason, blood sport.
What are you doing exactly? There are some other things, by the way, in Paul Tenorio's piece at The Athletic on this news dropping, including some quotes from Paul McDonough, who we have a request out to get somebody from USL. Now, remember, they hired Tony Scholes. He's an Englishman to come over and run all this stuff. He will be the guy leading the USL Premier launch. He doesn't start until the summer when he is done with his responsibilities in England.
Is that a problem?
I don't know. I mean, again, they're 2 years out from launching this league. He should have time to get things underway, but it is something to be mentioned. Paul McDonough saying we're trying to look out the next 5 to 7 years toward building a 3-tiered integrated system linked together by promotion and relegation. We want to try to build towards this structure over the next 5 to 7 years, and then we have enough runway to see how the country evolves, what the ecosystem is like, and we'll evaluate as we go. Now that you can't lock this down and say we're definitely doing this and we're definitely doing that. Things are going to change, people.
Yeah, it's that Band-Aid ripping on and off here, losing, gaining. It's gonna be
one
messy.
thing you have to wonder about, and there are ambitious clubs who are well-funded who will probably be fine. But there may be clubs who find that USL Premier is a real tough lift for them, right? Like there's a lot of money that we're spending now. And are we making enough money to justify this? Everybody I expect will be significantly in the red, at least initially, right? Because you don't know exactly what your costs are going to be. Remember, and this is something that has come up again as we see this news drop. Remember that USL and their agreement with their clubs is there's no money trickling down from the national organization to the clubs. The broadcast money doesn't trickle down, right? You're still paying significant fees to stay in the league or to expand into the league, right? You're basically paying the USL for the privilege of playing under their banner and being organized into the league. And that's about it. That's about it. George is pointing out that every club's in the red. That's probably every club is in the red. But again, I think there's a stomach for how much red, right? It's a matter of how dark is that red. And I'm not saying that any clubs are definitely going to fold or self-relegate, but that's already happened, right? And I don't know, like, again, you're getting everybody to sign off on this, but you don't know exactly how it's going to go until you're doing it. So,
yeah, we're in Wild West territory here. I mean, as long as I feel like at least in our chairs, I mean, it's harder for those of fans of clubs that are in the mix here to be laissez-faire there. But I mean, I think that we're going to see some people or some clubs that are a lock fade away, and then maybe some unexpected cities and clubs hop into the mix. And I think that it's just gets definitely until the full engine is running, this interim period of building up and populating the clubs before the pro rel system is even saying that we're talking 5-10 years before the actual pro rel bit of this actually engages. And that whole lot of coming and going could happen in that time.
Yeah, it's not exactly clear when the pro rel piece will kick in. Right?
Because if I'm reading it right, it almost seems like they're going to operate until the first division gets to 20 teams and then engage it. But that's an assumption.
Yeah, that's just, well, like I said, you could do, we're launching with 12 teams or we're launching with whatever teams we have ready, which isn't 20. And as the years go by, the USL Championship sends up two teams every year to populate to 20, and then you start with relegation from USL Premier. But again, I don't know. And again, there is this idea of like, will there be championship clubs who are starting in League One for whatever reason? Or will it only be League One clubs now, and then you continue to populate the map with new clubs to fill up League One? Under current plans, the USL intends for both USL Premier and the USL Championship to operate with 20 teams. USL League One will be then a national league that competes regionally. And I guess that means you'll have divisions and then there'll be playoffs, I'm assuming, because you can't do a balanced schedule if you're doing regional competition with more than 20 teams. But the top two divisions will be 20 teams and do a balanced schedule. And I'm assuming it doesn't say no playoffs for USL Championship and USL Premier, Rob, but if they're doing a balanced schedule, your argument could be because of Pro Rel, we should just be doing a single table and determining everything by that metric. And then are you then, I'm not saying that you have to do playoffs, but there are very few professional American sports leagues who are like, you know what, playoffs, we don't need them. So that's interesting.
How much hair will we have on our heads by the time we get to these scenarios? I mean, an American Soccer Pro Rel playoff sounds like edge of the seat entertainment that I can't wait to engage with. But I mean, we could be a long way off here indeed. And elephant in the room, there should be one thing noted within this conversation yet. With all these grand plans, there is a labor impasse going on at the same time.
Yes, there is that. And we did touch on, we have touched on that a little bit recently, but just to kind of catch you up, the USL Players Association did take to their Instagram account to make some pretty pointed comments about this. And they did use the hashtag gaslighting. Just saying that, reporting that. They used the hashtag gaslighting. I know we're going to be moving on here in a second. Again, from Paul Tenorio's piece at The Athletic, the likely plan for promotion and relegation would see two teams go up and down when the league launches with 12 or 14 teams. Again, still some details to be sorted out. Once the USL Premier is at a full 20 teams, it will likely transition to 3 teams up and 3 teams down. Details will be discussed with owners in February. Again, the steps left, USL still has to go through a process, including finalizing Pro Rel plans and working with US Soccer on the Pro League standards so that teams getting promoted are able to meet those requirements. USL Premier will operate alongside MLS as a first division US outfit. And again, you know, that those elements are still a little bit unclear. So while this is movement, Rob, I'm not sure there's a whole lot of substance here. It's just kind of giving us, you know, again, giving us an idea of how many teams will be in the leagues is fine, without identifying those teams or even knowing how many teams ultimately have applied for first division status or where they might be looking at expansion, because that is again mentioned in Paul's piece, just like you brought to us here from the other story. You know, it's kind of tough to know what's going to go down here.
And the story only just beginning here. USL's top division to be called USL Premier. And we have a couple breadcrumbs of what those leagues and that structure will look like. But of course, the conversation rages on. Feel free to comment and throw your 2 cents in. Who should be in year 1 for USL Premier, and how should the Pro Rel system work? And what is your estimated timeline for these leagues to fill up to 20 and for the final system of Pro Rel to engage in the United States? Thank you to our channel members for joining into the conversation. This is an open conversation, interactive show. Me, Jason, you, subscribers, viewers, members. This is the American Soccer Conversation. Support, tell a friend, become a member, and try to elevate the show to the highest level possible. All right, we got a great guest on the way. 38 days to kickoff for AC Boise. Countdown to kickoff when we come back here on Morning Kickaround. With 38 days to kickoff, we check in now with our friends out in Boise. AC Boise, just moments away, 38 days, in fact, for their opening kickoff in USL League One. And so now we're joined by co-founder of the club, former U.S. Soccer VP, Bill Taylor. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kickaround, sir.
Oh, thanks. I really appreciate it, Robert. Jason, nice to see you.
Thanks for coming on, Bill. I see a bunch of trophies behind you. That's always a good sign that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. It's a good wall. It's a good wall in my office.
Well, that's I imagine people are like, okay, all right. So Bill, tell us. I mean, we've had a chance to talk to your co-founder, Brad Stith. We talked to the head coach, Nate Miller. We're now talking to you. So right now, what are you engaged in? Again, 38 days from your first game.
Right now, the team's down in San Diego. We're in preseason. We've gone through 2 trials in January. Actually, sorry, we had 1 trial in January. We had a trial back in November, an open door trial in November, and then we took some of those players and we invited them back to a closed door trial in January that we just finished on the 19th and 20th, and then went straight into preseason, did our physicals and all that stuff, and we're at Chula Vista for a couple of weeks. They just had their first 2 days started on Monday. I'll be joining the team on Friday, and I'll be down there for the remainder of preseason with the staff. But all reports back to me thus far on a daily basis have been very positive. So we have kind of to me, it's a 2-phase process. You have in the preseason, you have our travel part where we kind of go away and try and figure out the base of the team. As you've seen, we've announced, 13 players now, with Dom being Dominique Gasso is the most recent that we've announced. We've signed more, obviously, but that's all pending, federation and league approval. But with that being said, in Chula Vista, we'll kind of you're trying to get the team together and figure out those trialists. From our open trial, we took about 7 players with us, beyond the ones that we've already signed, and so it's a time to really try and figure out who your team is at that point. And then when we come back to Boise, we'll be here for 3 more weeks until the season kicks off. And during that period of phase, you've pretty much got your team put together, and you're kind of going through your tactics and your camaraderie, and you're trying to build the culture at that point. And so you're ready to go day one.
I do want to dig in and kind of hammer down on like the specifics of what you were looking for in those players in the tryouts and what you want to see from players in preseason, and kind of like what image you're trying to mold this debutante squad into. But you are the co-founder, AC Boise, in a time of American soccer expansion. What sparked you to get this team going? What made you think, I want to start a soccer club and then start it in Boise, Idaho?
I don't know that you have enough time on your podcast for this one.
Give it a shot.
But from a high level, I mean, my background is a little bit unique, I think, for the role that I'm playing. I don't know that there's many neuroradiologists that are doing this. So, but coming from, I have a lens, like, so everyone, your life experiences give you different lenses, right? And so, my particular lens that I look through is a little bit unique, I think, because I've grown up just loving the game. Everyone, I mean, a lot of people have passions in different areas. It's great when those passions line up and it can actually work out. And so, from growing up in Hawaii, then, coming all the way through and playing, and I just love the game, and, all of those kinds of things from a fan perspective, but then having the ability to then the opportunities to coach, and then to kind of move into the politics of all of it. Here, when I moved to Boise, I kind of really then said, okay, this is going to be my secondary passion, right? So my first passion obviously is with medicine, and but I don't think that, I think I've spent as much time in the soccer world as I have in medicine at this point. I think anyone that knows me knows that's true. So with that being said, I'm well over the 10,000 hours that people talk about in both professions, actually. So with that being said, Boise specifically, since I moved to Boise in 2004, because I'm not an Idaho native. I wasn't like born and raised here. I'm a transplant, but Boise's put their arms around me and my family, since 2004 when we arrived. ever since I got here, I've always seen the goal is to try and create a pathway between the youth landscape and the pro landscape. And so from day one, I was always proactive in trying to create a bridge between this pathway, including, during my journey of becoming, I was the state president for Idaho Youth Soccer Association for about a decade or so. And I was coaching club for the last 20 years. I coached club year round plus high school on top of it. So I was coaching, literally year round for many, many years, and understood like that. I learned, and I wanted to understand the politics behind all of it as well. So that I kind of got into all the politics while I was coaching. I was doing the politics and growing and understanding not only the local politics, but then wanted to understand at a national level. And was fortunate enough to have that opportunity with US Soccer, and really kind of was an eye-opening experience. But drawing all of that back to your question, which is, why Boise, why now? During all of that, we had the opportunity to bring Athletic Bilbao, for example, to Boise in 2015. And that 2-year journey from 2013 to 2015 for me was extremely impactful, working with the city, with our mayor and Argia Beristain, who's now at Boise State University. The three of us basically, did something that was really life changing and unique. And we brought in, a Champions League team into Boise during that year, right? So Valverde was the coach back then, had them play against Club Tijuana, put in, 24,000 plus people into the stadium. And really kind of woke up Idaho to like, hey, a pro team can come here and survive. So that led then 2 years later to, I wanted to run the experiment with, a team that would be more realistic to us, which was at that time, the USL 2 teams. And we brought in, Portland Timbers 2, and they played against Swope Park Rangers at the high school that I coached at. And we sold it out 5,000. It took like a few days to sell that out. It was easy. And that's where it really kicked off. When that happened, and we ironically brought in Blake Bodley, and he played as one of the youngest players in the USL for that game. That was a proud moment for us in the community. And so that's kind of where the kickoff was. So I've always been pushing, right, for this opportunity.
The thing about, you having this youth soccer background, having coached at the youth level, and then being involved in the pro team and the launch of a brand new team in a place like Boise is interesting to me, because I think the history of American soccer at the professional level is sort of littered with these teams that are, wholly conceived of as businesses, right? They're wholly conceived of as professional sports enterprises, and that's okay. Like a minor league baseball team, the players come from somewhere else, but the idea is we're a local business. And it's not, while you may connect with the community, there isn't the same kind of pathway that you can obviously create in soccer. And I don't know if my question is, do you think that this is something that every community can do? Because our viewers, this is what they care about. They want to see professional soccer teams around the country so kids can dream about playing for their local team. Is this unique to Boise? And from your experiences, is AC Boise's approach unique?
I think we'll have we're in the process of develop, right? Proof in the pudding kind of thing. Like, next year when you talk to us, we'll see where we really what we actually accomplished. I'm very optimistic, and probably overly optimistic, but I know my ownership group that I'm working with and our desires. It's been from day one. It was part of me being a part of this process required us. When Brad Stith came to my house the very first time and said, hey, like, do you want to work with us? And we went through this. I shared with him the vision of what I think our opportunity for the kids here locally really consists of, and how we would go about doing it. You watch over and over again, pro organizations come into local landscapes, and what are the first thing they do? They start an academy, right? And they compete against their fans, which I think is a bad model personally. I may take some flack on this, but I believe that, we're staying agnostic to that. So the model we're putting in place is a kind of a unique one, I think. Spoke at it at the Philly conference, the United Soccer Coaches Conference the other day with the USL, with Liam O'Connell. What we want to do is we want to wrap our arms around, and I've been pretty vocal about our ODP system, for example. I think the ODP program, especially if you're in an area that's somewhat geographically isolated, this is where it benefits us. Like, normally it's a disadvantage to be geographically isolated, but if you're in an LA market, it's different, right? If you're New York or some big big marketplace where you have players coming from all over the place and you just have this huge player pool. I think the model will be different there. But in more of the country, I think you have more things that are closer to what Boise is, which is a little more not quite as geographically isolated, but relative. So utilizing something like your ODP system where you have coaches from the community already there, you have players that come in. The key with that is you have to make it free. You need to make it so that it's not cost prohibitive for players to come in. And to be honest with you, I've been pushing that even with US Soccer. I was always of the opinion, I said, look, if we really wanted to know what our talent pool was, and we wanted to like close the gap on that, we would make that the scouting and identification pathway, whether it's ODP or whatever pathway you're talking about, as from a scouting perspective for players, you want to make that system free or as inexpensive as possible. So that's what we're going to try and do. We're creating a foundation that's separate from AC Boise. That's part of our ownership group that will then fund, we'll start at U14, we'll go to 16, we'll have 20s. And while it won't be owned by AC Boise, it'll be in collaboration with the state association. We'll educate coaches. We'll bring big player pools in and make it, there's a lot of refugee kids here. There's a lot of people that just can't afford the soccer system that we currently live in. And it allows us to not compete directly with the local clubs because they can still play with their club. If they want to spend more money and go do that, that's fine. But they'll train at our facility. We'll be able to have eyes on them from our coaching staff. And it's the best shot. And in the end, if we get one or two players from that matriculate into us, then fantastic. But you know what? What's more important about all of this is that we actually help these kids have a great future, because that's the vehicle that we have. That's the social responsibility, I believe, from an ownership group. We have the opportunity to really impact the lives of so many kids that can go on to college or to get trades or to other things that they wouldn't otherwise have using competition to be the mechanism, right? So that's the lens that we're coming at it with. And, I think it's a good lens, but we'll see how good we get with it.
Yes, thank you for describing that kind of like youth on up connection to the pro game, like kind of foundation that you're establishing. Like that's not always the case. Sometimes is just like the moving truck comes to town with the team, and then it's like, okay, go. And that doesn't seem to be the case at all. And eventually, maybe the programs you're talking about establishing, maybe they do end up literally connecting those youth players getting into that pro side. But here in year one, you have Blake Botley, your first signing, local player, but you've also added another dozen players or so in this process as your team enters preseason 38 days ahead of their first ever match. So what do you want to see from this group? Like, I guess, what's the vision? What is if anyone was to describe what athletic or AC Boise is here in 2026, what are the phrases that you want to hear them described as?
I think the roster build is what you're referring to, obviously, but and to step back, we've been fortunate. You've already interviewed Nate. He's a special talent. I do wholeheartedly believe that we made a great choice there. He brings an energy and a level of professionalism that's just fantastic for starting where we're at. So that's the baseline, right? You got to get your coaching staff right first, because that's going to determine your roster build, and the type of people we're signing is reflective of that, and very professional. There's kind of for us, we wanted to go, some teams might have a methodology of going about it like, hey, we want to develop young players and then we want to sell them or what have you, right? So we want to be more of a developmental model. Other people are like, no, we just want to go on the field and win. We really don't care about them. And then I think we're kind of in between the two, where we want a level of experience. We want a core group of guys that we're bringing in that have good experience. And then we want to bring in a few kids, a few younger players that have growth potential. And then maybe one or two in the early phase. I think our paradigm might shift over the next few, 3 or 4 years. But in year one, that's kind of the paradigm that we're going with. So we want leaders, creators, competitors, right? And if you look at the signings that we brought in, like I would highlight probably 3 of them initially, like, Blake Botley being the first one. I have a personal side with Blake. I was Blake's first coach at when he was 13. So
way.
like when he was, I remember being on the first phone call with his mom when he was 12 and bringing him over to my team. And we had a special team. Actually, it was a regional level team. It was probably one of the better teams I've ever coached, but winning the very first trophy that Blake has ever won is always a highlight for me. But, I followed him, I brainwashed him over the last few, years, decade or so, as I traveled. Whenever I was in a city that Blake was in, I'd take him to lunch and I'd be like, hey, he'd ask me, how's the pro thing going? I'd be like, well, we're struggling. We failed at this or whatever. Well, we'll get it, Blake. He said, and we're going to get it, and you're going to come and play for us. And he goes, yeah, whatever. And so, sometimes it's rare that these kind of things work out, but it did. So Blake is a fantastic example of the type of player bringing in. I think one of the other ones, kind of the opposite side, not opposite side, but kind of the other spectrum of it, to me, is a unique one that we just signed, is Dominic Gasso. He's the first, academy to pro signing, from a USL academy to pro signing, which is a pretty cool thing, from Detroit City. He brings, a technical ability, a relentless player. He's creative through the midfield. He's going to be a great pickup for us, I think. So, and then the third one that I would probably highlight, and whenever I say his name, I kind of laugh, because it's Denis Kostasian, because I feel like I'm like, slurring or having a stroke when I say his last name. But he's a personality, right? You need that guy that comes into the locker room the day he shows up in his white puffy coat and furry stuff, and he just is smiling, and he's engaging. He's one of those locker room kind of guys that you like to have, and that his background from the Ukraine brings a different perspective and grit, and European, especially Ukraine, right? If you watch the Ukrainian leagues, you're tough. So
I just came across a little interview with Dennis where he talks about why he decided to sign with Boise, because there's people that know him are like, what, why Boise? And he said, they impressed me, which is obviously a reflection on you and on Brad and everybody else involved in the club, that he said, oh, this is really cool what they're building in Boise.
Yeah. And I think part of it is like, when if you look at a roster build as a transactional process, I think you're short-sighting yourself from the experience of being even as a coach and an owner, right? This is so much more than just getting on the field and winning a game on Saturday or Wednesday or whatever you play, right? It's an opportunity to affect, granted they're professionals, but all of these professionals are it's going to be the last stop for them. They're going to have to do something else in their life at some point. And one of the things we want to do as well is we want to invest in these players off the field. So we're giving them opportunities. If they want to invest in themselves, we are providing avenues through my ownership group for business opportunities, for internships, for other things, instead of playing FIFA all day. So we want to invest in players that we're bringing players to Boise that also see that vision, that, hey, you're not just coming here, you're a part of our family, and we want to help you be successful off the field as much as you're successful on the field. And whether you're with us for 1 year or 3 years or 4 years, however long you're with our club, you're now part of our club. Like, I don't care if you go play for Detroit or whoever else you go play for, you can always call me. You can always come back to us. I'll always help you facilitate, because now you're a part of our family. And I've treated my players, whether they're kids and now adults and having their own children and getting master's degrees or doctorates, like, you're a part of my family. And so I think when you go to people with that humanistic, they can feel that, and they sense that you value them. You're not a commodity. You're not someone that's just showing up and winning a game on Saturday and then, great, or you didn't win and you're just a commodity and like, hey, we're trading you off, right? Like, no, you have value. You're a person. We want to really invest in you. We want to go deep. And I think the players, when they interview with us, when their agents are talking to us, they sense that. And I think we've gotten unique players because of that methodology, our belief system and what we're trying to do.
Bill, thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kicker. And before we let you go, while you're still here in front of our audience, is there anything for folks that are excited about it from far away? Is there anything that you want to express about your team while you have this audience in front of you?
I'm hoping that you'll be able to come and visit us. I think we have a unique atmosphere that we built. The stadium's really cool. It's that old European type stadium with a huge steel roof that's super loud. The pitch is great, and the view of the mountains behind with the river, and it's just a great place. So I would invite all of you. I'm looking forward to coming to your places and sharing it on and enjoying the experience, because in the end, that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, look, I said this to Brad, and I'm sure I mentioned it to Nate. My sister, my little sister lives in Boise, so I have a reason to go beyond the club. But I'm going to go and say, "Hey, sis, I'm here. I'm going to go check out the soccer team in town." So maybe we'll get that together.
You call me. We'll come and watch some training. We'll go get some good food, and we'll go hang out. It'll be fun.
There we go.
That sounds like a time. Bill Taylor, co-founder of AC Boise, kicking off their USL League One debut season in 38 days. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. That was Bill Taylor from AC Boise. Thank you so much to him. Exciting times up there in the northwest of the country. Thank you, viewers, for tuning in. Some great questions. I hope you enjoyed that look at a team in the final stages of their preparation, their first ever preseason. Exciting times there. We have a goal for a bonus, right? What was the goal? I haven't seen anything come through today.
It's expired at this point, so it looks like we're not going to reach that goal today. So no super secret extra bonus stuff where we're going to tell stories that we can't talk about on the radio or on the show yet on the air. But that's okay. We got more. Let's come back and let's talk about what's coming up in the U.S. Open Cup.
All right, we got one more segment to come. Hang on out. We're going to talk Open Cup here on Wednesday's Morning Kick Around. Welcome back in Morning Kick Around. Amongst the big, busy news on Tuesday, January 27th, the release of the schedule for the first round of the 111th edition of the U.S. Open Cup was released. We are going to kick it all off this year on March 17th. And I got to say, there is some intriguing matchups here in this first round.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a lot of pro versus amateur, which is what we like, right? I know the ultras and those watching on YouTube are probably most excited about some of these big teams facing off against small amateur clubs or clubs maybe that you haven't even heard of. I mean, Rob, for example, I'm looking down the list here. I see Detroit City FC at Keyworth Stadium in Hamtramck, Michigan will face off against the Michigan Rangers, who I've never heard of. Never heard of the Michigan Rangers. Don't know who that is.
So that's one of the magic things of the Cup. You got to do a little bit of Google eyes and to find some of these opponents. But Michigan Rangers, in my mind, that is a rebranded of an old youth team on the west side of Michigan, a place called Hudsonville, which I'm sure is buried under feet and feet of snow right now. But yeah, I'll have to look up what amateur side or what amateur league they're in on the senior side. But in my mind, that's a youth team. Oh, Michigan Rangers. Thank you, Chris, our USL2 and summer amateur specialist in the MK Ultras. Chris, they are NPSL
Central Region. Yeah, that's it. So obviously, lots of people are going to. So, like, this is the whole list. I don't know that we need to go through all of these, but I do think people are going to be obviously attracted to, on March 17th, Vermont Green FC, USL2 champions up against the Portland Hearts of Pine, the darlings of USL League One, into their second year here in 2026. That game at Virtue Field in Burlington. It does say Burlington. I think that's a typo from U.S. Soccer, but Burlington, Vermont. A game that will be on Paramount Plus and CBS Sports Network. And you can see, this is a screenshot from the U.S. Soccer website with all these games. You can see that all the games will be available somehow, some way, YouTube for most of them, but there are certain games that are being highlighted to be broadcast on Paramount Plus, CBS Sports, Golazo Network, that kind of stuff. So exciting times for that. So we got, I don't know what else from this section, because there's we got a lot of games, so this is only part of it. What stands out for you, Rob, on this page?
Well, what you said, I mean, the most popular USL 2 team versus the most popular USL 1 team is definitely the headliner, the Vermont versus the Portland Hearts of
Yeah,
Pine.
it's a little hipster special, isn't it? It's a little
Yeah,
bit
I was like, was
feel-good,
this a random draw where you got the two
feel-good
most
derby.
popular USL teams together? But there are definitely a number of interesting ones. Rhode Island FC, they are playing against a team that we will have to Google, CD Fialense. I don't know why I put myself in the position to try to pronounce that
I
name.
would guess that is a team based in the Portuguese community up there in probably Rhode Island. I don't know where Fialense is based or whatever. I do say Richmond Kickers versus Northern Virginia FC. I can't remember where Northern Virginia FC plays. I'm in Northern Virginia. I think they play out in the exurbs a little bit. Northern Virginia FC. That game at City Stadium in Richmond, Virginia, home of the Richmond Kickers. Indy 11 versus Des Moines Menace is also on Paramount Plus. That's an interesting one.
I think that's interesting. The pro versus amateur, but will Des
Are we
Moines
getting
pull out
ringers?
the ring? Will they pull out the
Are we
ringers
getting-
again?
Are we getting the ringers this year? Where's Sasha? Can we get Sasha on the phone? Sasha Kleshtin got some ringers together for Des Moines Menace last year. All right, we're going on because people are missing some teams. There's 3 pages of this, people, so just bear with us here as we work through this. Chattanooga FC versus Kalanji Pro Profile. Now, most people, I'm guessing, haven't heard of Kalanji Pro Profile. I have, because I know that they are a UPSL national finalist in recent years. They're out of Atlanta, Georgia. That's an interesting one to me, playing at Finley Stadium in Chattanooga. I know they've had some pretty good players. Kalanji Pro Profile. Let's see. Charleston Battery versus Badgers FC. I'm going to have to look up Badgers FC, find out where they play. That's an interesting one. FC Motown out of Northern New Jersey
Versus Heartland or Hartford. Yeah, that'll be a good one.
And that game in New Jersey, not in Hartford. So that's an advantage to FC Motown, which I think is Sasir Hot. I think he is involved. Or was involved in FC Motown. I have to check on them. Little Rock Rangers, FC Tulsa. I do love a matchup between a pro team and a team that definitely feels like it's got a youth club name, like ASC New Stars in San Antonio down there on March 18th.
We've got the Badgers, and we've got that one. There's definitely some of the youth team names rising to the senior level here. But there's a game on March 18th, which pits one of the Open Cup darlings of the last recent years to one of the lower league, most accomplished. I think that another headline, the second day of this first round, is Sacramento Republic versus El Farolito.
Yeah, okay. I'm not there yet. There's some more March 18th games. So Sacramento versus El Farolito. Yeah, El Farolito out of San Francisco. Sacramento Republic, obviously, in the California capital, and a pro team at the USL Championship level. AV Alta involved here, down there in Lancaster against a team called Valley 559. Ventura County Fusion, which has a long history in amateur soccer, hosting Spokane Velocity there in Ventura, California. Let's see. New Mexico gets Cruisers FC, which I'm not aware of. And then here's the March 19th games. So we have 17th, 18th, and 19th. This one got mentioned in the Discord. Carolina Core versus Virginia Dream. The Virginia Dream plays down the road from me, maybe 10 minutes from my house.
All right, we need all the MK Ultras. I put this in the Discord. We got to bully this man into going to this game.
I got to look and see what the life calendar looks like for March 19th to make it down to High Point, North Carolina, which is probably at least an 8-hour drive. At least. I got to check on, maybe not. Maybe it's 7.
It's not local to you at all.
No, it's in High Point, North Carolina.
Okay, there you go.
That
changes everything. I saw Virginia Dream, and I was like, you got to go.
Our guy Zach wants me to go down to High Point, and I would go, but I gotta. That's a bigger lift than going 10 minutes down the road to watch them play at Annandale High School. I'm just
all
saying.
right. So we're all pulling for Virginia Dream to win on the road to then possibly get a home game for
maybe.
For you.
Sure. That's sure. Flint City Bucks and Ford Madison
That's an interesting one. Yeah, that's because that's at an alternative location. That is not at the home of the Flint City Bucks at Wood Stadium in Flint. So I'm assuming that's a college. Maybe they couldn't get their venue. So welcoming Forward Madison, I think I will again check the personal calendar. But going to see Forward Madison here in Michigan, I think is well worth the trip to Grand Blanc, which is about 45 to 60 minutes away
Oh,
from me. So
it's
so
Grand Blanc. It's not Grand Blanc. It's Grand
no,
Blanc.
it's that Midwestern thing of like Indian or Native American names and French names just being absolutely slaughtered here
Absolutely
in the
slaughtered.
Midwest.
Yeah. I'm
Grand
being
Blanc.
told
It's not
I'm
Grand
being
Blanc.
told by Armando that that it's 5 hours to High Point from Northern Virginia. Now I'm going to not give you my exact address, but I am going to do the directions here over in Google Maps to see if I can. I'm not promising anything, okay? Tell my wife, hey, I got to go down to High Point, North Carolina. What day of the week is March 18th, by the way, or whatever which
March
day it was?
19th. I'm assuming it's midweek because we should note that this is
19th, yes.
the smallest version of the Open Cup due to the withdrawal or the pullback from USL and MLS due to the FIFA World Cup window. So it is the smallest field, but they seem like they have definitely juiced some of these matchups to make the early rounds as exciting as possible. March 19th is a Thursday. And so I guess I should have looked a little closer at the venue before I started this pressure campaign with you to go to the Virginia Dream. So I apologize for that. But the
you
US
should
Open
apologize. You should apologize. No, just kidding.
I will go to I will go to Grand Blanc as punishment on the
I would
19th.
love to go. I really would. It's 4 hours and 50 minutes from my house right now. Now, obviously, we're post morning rush hour traffic and pre afternoon rush hour traffic in the DC metropolitan area. So I don't know how much longer it might be if I had to leave during rush hour. And that's also a work day. I got other things besides morning kick around that I do that might require my day.
Right.
Would love to go. But yeah, it's gonna be tough. But obviously I'd be rooting for Virginia Dream, which is my local team. There are actually a couple of teams that have entries into NPSL, UPSL in my area, but this is a team obviously that's made the US Open Cup, which is a huge deal. It's a massive thing, and congratulations to them for reaching that level. Anything else stand out for you, Rob, from this U.S. Open Cup? As you said, it's scaled down because we've had some of the pro teams pull out. USL's not interested entering all their teams this time around, just like MLS. But what else stands out for you as we talk U.S. Open Cup?
I'm just excited that this amount of amateur teams. We had a little bit of a joke, in just lighthearted fun that there's some like kind of youth teams, elevating to play against some pro teams. And I just say kudos to them for entering into the US Open Cup. There's some, traditionally with the schedule changing around, the amateur teams don't always have their first selection of players, and kudos to them for qualifying and for just participating in it, because it isn't always work with the calendar. Especially, I was surprised to see the Flint in there, and there's a couple others that I know are probably going to have an alternative set of players to be here. But that's all I got to say. It's definitely an interesting, different version of the tournament. But at least this first round from March 17th to 19th, we're going to get some unique matchups that we haven't seen before. Like Ford Madison coming to Michigan, hasn't happened.
Chris is saying that he doesn't think this was USL that decided not to enter all its pro teams, that this is a U.S. Soccer, U.S. Open Cup decision, which is very possible. And I'll admit that among some other things happening in the world of soccer, that has not been my focus in trying to drill down on why the U.S. Open Cup has been sort of limited. I mean, once MLS, who we know made the decision not to enter all their teams, I will say that unfortunately it has drawn down my enthusiasm for the Open Cup. It has made the Open Cup not nearly as exciting and attractive and fun for me to think about as a competition that matters. I don't know that that's fair. I mean, and we could still have a compelling U.S. Open Cup. I shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I'll admit that that's been a thing for me. And I imagine a lot of people have kind of been in that same space, right? I know that there are defenders of the cup who would say so wrong for MLS to treat it this way, and don't want to, turn their back on the tournament because of that. But there are going to be people that say, the Open Cup isn't the Open Cup anymore. It's not the same thing. Why would I care?
Why would you care? Indeed. But I mean, at least here at this period, when you're looking at these amateur versus pro matchups, that's exciting at the very least. But yeah, overall, it is what it used to be. And hopefully, I guess the big determining factor will be post World Cup. Does it return to regular participation? I think that's where we're really going to see which direction the Open Cup's going to be. Like 2027, is it going to be full force Open Cup? Are they going to reconfigure it? Will we see full participation? It's yet to be seen. And there's even more competition with the USL's internal league cup, being created recently and only expanding with more teams there.
That's the
Champions
thing.
League, Leagues Cup, all that stuff.
Leagues Cup. Leagues Cup, Jägermeister Cup, which again, I'm not positive about the future of that. I imagine it'll still continue, but the way that USL is working on their product, what does that mean for? It's not the Jägermeister Cup anymore. It's called something else. The Prinks, whatever that is. Okay, it's called that. And I was just thinking while you were talking there, we're talking about the US Open Cup changing a bit. It's almost impossible because we're already at a point of saturation with fixtures and scheduling. I'm not just talking about pro teams. I mean, amateur teams struggle. Obviously, you have travel costs and all the things that go into that. You have player availability, which has come up. But man, I'm thinking about the FA Trophy over in England and how fun it might be. And obviously, you would have to be a sicko. You'd have to be a nerd. You'd have to be really into lower division soccer in America to care as much. But wouldn't it be fun to have a competition that allowed a lower division team to be crowned a champion, right? Forget MLS, maybe forget USL Championship, USL League One, and give us an opportunity to crown. I mean, it would be an amateur champion, obviously, but we don't have a united amateur trophy because we've got so many different leagues in the alphabet soup and the league, the league for clubs, NPSL, UPSL, NISA still wants to be a thing. Shout out to NISA there on my jersey.
State Amateur Association Cups.
Well, NISA's pro, nominally pro, but I guess I got my wires crossed there. But I'm saying, what I'm saying. The FA Trophy is a trophy for teams that aren't Manchester United and Chelsea and Man City, right? It is that. And the FA Vase too. What level is the FA Vase? Shout out to George. I can't remember.
It's the FA Vase, I'm sure.
It's not the Vase. It's the Midwestern guy who says blank.
Come on down to Grand Blanc, Michigan, and watch a soccer match.
There is a movie called Gross Point Blank. I should have known that it's blank and not blanc. Yeah. And you guys, there's some French words up there. And
I mean, there's never been, I think you might get egged if you say Detroit instead of Detroit.
Well, that is obviously one of them, but there's like streets when I remember going up there to see Detroit City and do shows.
Gratiot is one, and Lasser, and there's a few different ones like that.
Gratiot. What is happening right now? I mean, okay. Yeah. You have to be local to understand.
Yeah, that's definitely a Detroit thing. We can mispronunciate all sorts of languages around here. But the worst mispronunciation of a French thing is in Chicagoland, Des Plaines. There's a place in Chicago, Des Plaines. That always kind of made my skin crawl a little.
At least they don't say Des Moines. They say Des Moines.
They try picking and choosing.
Yeah. Okay. A little bit of clarification on the vase, since we're saying vase and the trophy. FA vase is for 5th and 6th steps. So tiers 9 and 10, that's way down there. We obviously don't delineate those levels. We don't have tiers 9 and 10, right? We're talking about just trying to figure out what the actual 4th division looks like in American soccer. So, but it would be cool. It would be cool to have something like that.
If you were to do an equivalent, I would say some sort of state associations, amateur state cups and all that could get grouped in with that sort of thing, perhaps, if you're talking about 9th and 10th tiers of a quote-unquote pyramid here as I slap the microphone. But big day here on the show. We talked USL Premier is official, kind of got a little bit of a timeline, a 28 launch, and an over-under of 5 to 10 years of actual, promotion and relegation being implemented. We got a look into the foundation from one of the co-founders of one of USL League One's expansion teams, AC Boise, of course, and then spotlighted some of those interesting and notable U.S. Open Cup, the 111th edition of the U.S. Open Cup. Some notable matchups there in the first round there in mid-March.
Yeah. So, okay. I guess there's a National Amateur Cup. I'm aware of that. It gets a spot in the Open Cup, according to Zach. Sorry. We're all clicking the same things. Maybe we're talking about something that feels as important as the Open Cup, but I guess that's impossible, right? That's part of the deal here. But it's broadcasting, though. It's like visibility, and that's what we miss. And obviously, there's that question, that internal question of demand ahead of, of distributing the product, or do you distribute the product ahead of demand? It's a thing.
Chicken and the egg. So many kind of conversations where we're at is definitely a chicken and the egg sort of stories. Like, does the TV get lots of views because there's a habit formed, or vice versa? Don't put it on TV because, nobody knows about it, which comes first. But part of this Open Cup, I mean, they're all going to be available on YouTube, and some of these juicier matchups, including Indy 11 versus Des Moines on Paramount CBS, as well as that probably grandstand and the one in lights, the matchup in lights for the Open Cup, Vermont Green versus Portland Hearts of Pine, March 17th. On Paramount/CBS Sports Network. Let's keep the conversation going on all these topics after live. So be free to comment under this video and keep the conversation going. Plenty going on in the ever expanding and contracting American soccer landscape. We will be back on Friday with more Morning Kick Around. And until then, everybody, enjoy your soccer.